Hey guys, welcome back to Eon Blue Reviews. Today I have sort of a special project I've been wanting to do for a while, and really I wanted to focus today on the current relationship of Capcom and its support for the Nintendo Switch. Now I definitely want to avoid making this a rant video and more along the lines of what's fact and the rumors that could quite possibly come true. So first off, it's important to know that Capcom has had a long and fruitful relationship with Nintendo. Last generation, Capcom gave us some great titles on the Wii U and the 3DS, but not many. With Monster Hunter titles on the 3DS, I believe we had 2 or 3 titles on there, and then one early title on the Wii U. We also had Resident Evil Revelation start off on the 3DS, which was later ported onto the home consoles, and then eventually got a sequel on the home consoles. Hell, we even got a decent Street Fighter port very early on the 3DS's life. And then by all graces, we got a Mega Man Legacy Collection not too long ago, and I think it sold best on the 3DS, again, possibly due to its portability. So it wasn't the best support, but there was definitely some great franchises on Nintendo from Capcom's behalf. So fast forward on to now, and the release of Nintendo Switch. Capcom has definitely gone through a lot of changes from last generation to this one. It's important to know that Street Fighter V was exclusive to PS4 and PC, which leads some fans to believe that Sony paid off Capcom to have some titles exclusively or only on the PS4 and away from Nintendo. I actually don't quite believe that because, I mean, if it's really all about the money, we know that Nintendo's going to possibly outsell PlayStation just due to its portability and the fact that it's much more popular over in Japan. But going back onto this, it's also good to know that the Marvel vs. Capcom franchise, Capcom's beloved franchise, will have some complications now. It's very apparent, and it's possibly due to just Disney and the Marvel side of the franchise and how it just complicates things. So it's going to be tough to ever really see any re-releases or anything on that end as far as Marvel vs. Capcom goes. But that kind of applies to everything that is Marvel vs. Capcom. So yeah, fans began to quickly wonder and even panic at the idea that Capcom would not support the Switch at all. This led to the rumor that the sales of the only Capcom title on the Switch would determine Capcom's future support for the Switch. That was actually the title Ultra Street Fighter 2: The Final Challengers, and that was released not too long ago, back in May of this year. So the rumor here was actually debunked really fast. It was basically saying again that if the Ultra Street Fighter 2 sold well on the Switch, then that would continue more titles onto the Switch on Capcom's behalf. But that wasn't really what they were aiming at. I actually have a quote here. I found it on NintendoLife.com, and it goes something like this. The bottom line is, nobody will show interest in your game if you don't shape it around the uniqueness of the console it's on. You can say the same for VR. There's a great variety of VR games available now, but it's just a small fraction of those that have been well received by players. We at Capcom are continuing our fundamental research into establishing an environment capable of releasing titles on any gaming device. We are releasing Ultra Street Fighter 2 on the Switch in May, and we'll be keeping an eye on it as we decide where to go from there. So there you have it. What does that really mean, though? So again, the uniqueness of a gaming device is what they're talking about. So I should probably take this moment to talk about the Final Challengers recently released on the Switch. Overall, I think it's a sweet package. Maybe not for the current MSRP or whatever it's selling for right now. But again, however, what the company was saying about the uniqueness of a console, determining what sort of game we'll get, is very prevalent in this package, actually. With that said, you can see the efforts being made by Capcom with the Hadouken mode that they added. Honestly, very gimmicky, if you want my opinion on that. They also added a gallery mode on there, which was basically illustrations from a previously released art book. Actually, I went through the art book. I took my time to actually check it out. I mean, I already paid for it, so why not? And it was really cool to actually see the evolution of Street Fighter. There's even some really cool Marvel vs. Capcom sketches on there, and it was just taking me down memory lane. It was just making me realize how rich Street Fighter has become over the years and all its background, really. And then furthermore onto the package, they offered a color edit mode, which I personally appreciated. I always love being able to customize my fighters or any game really that I can customize. So yeah. I know you may be thinking that the Hadouken mode was probably a joke and the biggest of gimmicks, But after all, Street Fighter 2 is a game that is well over 20 years old, and Capcom simply means to say that they need to sweeten the deal before they make any type of these ports or releases. So this sort of business model for ports is being seen elsewhere. Recently, I checked out the Japanese trailer for Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, which is going to be releasing on the Switch. I think later down this year. I'm not too sure. I couldn't make out much of the features that were being added, but of course they had to add the motion controls to the special moves. You know, do the Kamehameha gesture, and you can do that. I never thought I'd have the opportunity to execute a special beam cannon just by doing its respective gestures. I found that kind of funny. But again, it's this idea that they need to comply with what's available on the console to release a game on it at all. So yes, I can understand the mainstays of what makes a port unique on the Switch, but is it really necessary? I think most hardcore gamers of the Switch aren't quite interested in the motion controls of a game or the gyroscopes available to them on their controllers. And one good example that I personally think was great was Breath of the Wild. It found its balance with this motion gaming being used, that which was in a few puzzles that made things interesting with the motion sensing and giving the aim to your bow a nice, quick, and fluid feel to it, with the right stick there to assist you as well. Most hardcore gamers are interested on the portability and the hybridism, if that's a word, hybridism of the Switch itself. It is compatible competition on the go. At least that's how I see it. I can take my Mario Kart wherever I go. As of now, I have my King of Fighters wherever I need to settle it on. And of course, I have the Street Fighter as well now. And again, I don't want to get into the lack of the third-party support on the Switch too much in this video. I feel like there's enough substance there to make an entire separate video on that. However, I do want to talk about the ports and the support that's available on the Switch now. First off, the Virtual Console is not yet official on the Switch. It's beloved by all Nintendo fans. But instead, for now at least, we'll be getting a what will be like a classic Nintendo game subscription-based service. It's kind of a mouthful there, but I like to think of it a little bit as a Netflix of Nintendo, if that's kind of what they're aiming at. They have a few selection games available for you to play at a certain amount of times, and you just pay for the subscription. And I really hope they do make a Virtual Console besides that. With that said, other companies wasted no time on getting some classic games onto the Switch. Neo Geo released a few great titles near the launch of the Switch via the eShop, and have been consistent with their releases ever since then. They have titles like Metal Slug, King of Fighters, Samurai Showdown. Some other games that I've always been under the radar that I've never really noticed, but like the Mark of the Wolves, I definitely want to check that out. But they definitely wasted no time on doing that. So furthermore, Bandai Namco will be releasing what I call an obligatory Namco Museum onto the Switch late in June. I don't think there's ever been a console without a Namco Museum selection. So yeah, a key feature of this museum collection is that it will offer Pac-Man Versus, which was previously available on the GameCube. Essentially what this is a 4-player Pac-Man game, 3 Ghosts versus 1 Pac-Man. Hopefully it has online play. Previously you had to go through all of these obstacles just to get that mode going on the GameCube using a Game Boy Advance and all that good stuff. But hopefully it's a lot more easy this time around, or maybe you can split it up with the Joy-Cons between at least 4 controllers. We'll see how that goes. But one more thing that I personally loved about this is the feature to play some of the classic games vertically on the Switch. So that reminds me so much of the classic Namco tables where you would sit down, probably have somebody in front of you, you would just look down on a table, and it's pretty cool. And again, this is Namco using the uniqueness of the Switch to sweeten the deal. The model is there. The business model is there. You can see it. Just taking advantage of what's available to them. And again, I don't really think it's necessary to do that to get your ports over to the Switch, but it definitely helps. And then just a kind of quick refresher as well, one thing that Neo Geo did do is add just a bunch of options as just the way you want to play your games. For example, Metal Slug, you can take off the violence in it, so you can choose whether you want to have a really bloody game or not, and that in itself is pretty cool. You can mess with the audio, the screen size, you can play it in Japanese, you can play in the English version, so it kind of gives you those options, and that alone is enough for me really to buy a port. So really, back to Capcom as a supporter for the Nintendo Switch. Let's keep it focused. Nintendo fans have been flipping out on a notable pattern of missed opportunities, really, with the announcement of Monster Hunter World on the PS4 and the Xbox and the PC. It really does leave the Switch out of the mix. possibly due to console limitations. There's no real official reason why it's not on the Switch. But I mean, do we really have to forget that the Monster Hunter thrived on the 3DS or on the Nintendo for the past decade? It's just kind of it's not so easy to dismiss, and I understand where fans are coming from with that. Japan is getting a port of a previously released 3DS Monster Hunter onto the Switch, so I can only imagine what that may look like. And again, I can see why it may not make it over to the US, just because it's a game that was previously released and it's kind of like an addition to that. So really, you would have to release 2 Monster Hunter titles to get that port over to the US. I understand that. But furthermore, there was other games that are just kind of, they were a given and they were still not given. Mega Man Collection Volume 2 was simply not ported over. It's been officially announced. The game I don't really care for much, but it is a Capcom game, is a Disney Afternoon Collection. I understand there's plenty of platforming on those collection there, and I mean, that's just, again, it does feel like a missed opportunity. And this is sort of where I got the idea for this video from. I was rummaging through my PS3 digital collection the other day, and I found that I owned a great amount of classic Capcom games on there. I found myself playing Super Puzzle Fighter 2, which was an HD remix, so it was Turbo HD remix, and I was playing that way more than I should have. I love that game. And that led me to play all the other Street Fighter Alphas I owned. I even had a Pocket Fighter game, which is basically based off of Puzzle Fighters, but just made into an actual fighter. And that in itself is a very definition of fan service on Capcom's behalf. So many nice little details. You pick Felicia and you get to use like Mega Man powers. You pick Chun-Li and you get to use Chun-Li ability. I mean, not Chun-Li. I'm sorry, Jill Valentine abilities. So stuff like that was just really cool, and it's just kind of sad that we may not ever really see that in this day. But who knows? And I mean, even more so, I had Mega Man X5 and X4 backlogged so hard that I forgot that I even owned them. I was even tempted just to go through my first Resident Evil 3 Nemesis run. I never really got to play that game. I always wanted to, really. Truthfully, I just didn't know which direction to run while I was playing all these games. And what I'm trying to say here is that, I appreciate Neo Geo and Namco for what they're doing, but even then, Capcom simply has a richer catalog of richer games. And I can't help but to feel like this really is a missed opportunity from Capcom. To say this kind of support is not possible because they can't add a Hadouken mode-esque minigame to each of these titles is just ludicrous. Now, I'm not going to sit here and wish that we can get an MVC port or a Street Fighter V on the Switch. It really is a long shot. But really, it does make everything feel a lot more shaky these days. And we'll see how this goes. But yeah, guys, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I really appreciate you guys hanging out and just taking the time to hear me out, see what I think. I really don't feel like I can provide with too many answers as to what really is Capcom's plan at the moment. But I mean, if you guys know anything that I don't, or just feel like I left out on some information, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. I definitely want to have this up for discussion. Hopefully I can do an update on this as time goes by. But yeah, I'm really glad I was able to do a project like this. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for more reviews and videos like these, and just more shenanigans. Thanks, guys.